Deputy. Thank you. You have 20 minutes, Deputy.
Yeah, okay, I probably won't use the 20,
yeah.
but you never know. Right, so I welcome the opportunity to speak on the Credit Union Amendment Bill 2022. I think anything that helps develop and support the credit union movement in this country is something that should be welcomed. The credit union movement is pretty unique, not completely unique internationally, but it's pretty unique in that it offers a not-for-profit model which is democratic, is community-orientated for financial institutions, and that has social objectives and community objectives rather than the objectives of simply maximising profit, which is the raison d'etre of the banks. And I think we are grimly familiar with where the profit imperative that dominates the banking system, where that led us, particularly in the aftermath of the crash of 2008 and all the circumstances that led up to us. The rapacious, relentless greed of banks tipped our entire economy over the edge and inflicted very great suffering on vast numbers of our people. And that was down to the fact, there's no other reason other than the fact that it ran on a for-profit basis. It had no social objectives, no social imperatives. It was just about making money, whereas the credit union is very different and was set up precisely to break the mould in that regard of such, of that model of financial institution, and to have social and community objectives, and to be democratic and try and assist people who, aren't really of interest to the big banks. And the sort of for-profit culture that led to the crash of 2008 and the disregard really for ordinary customers of our financial institutions is not, sadly, a thing of the past, despite a lot of talk at the time after the crash of reform of the banking sector. And there was some in terms of capital requirements and so on, but in reality the banking system hasn't changed, and maybe the most egregious examples of that recently are the departure of Ulster Bank, where, well, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but I think probably in the region of 1 million customers just dumped by a bank where many of those customers were people who had been loyal customers all their lives, and for generations indeed. They'd been loyal customers and were just dumped unceremoniously by a bank that frankly didn't care about them, didn't care about the loyalty that the customers gave to that bank, because they make commercial decisions and that's it. And if that discommoded, as it has done, up to 1 million people, well, tough luck seems to be the attitude of the Ulster Bank. That's a very, very different culture from the credit unions, which are community-based organisations trying to assist ordinary people with their finances, with their lives. So, broadly speaking, I welcome, and we welcome, this bill, and I was more familiar with many of the issues involved when I was in the Finance Committee for quite a number of years in the Dáil, and I was aware of groups like the Irish League of Credit Unions, and I see they are broadly supportive of this bill, arguing precisely that the government should do more to support them and to recognise their unique qualities. One of the things that always struck me, and it was something I raised when I was on the Finance Committee on their behalf, was their offer to use their very considerable assets to help assist with social housing delivery in this country. And they've been saying it for many, many years, and I don't know where exactly that is at. What? But to be honest, we've been very slow. Successive governments seem to have been very, very slow in taking them up, an important offer. Now, I know there's a bit more money in the government coffers at the moment, but it's still, you know, seems odd that they were forced, and certainly that was the story they relayed to me, that they were forced often to deposit their money with commercial banks when they would have much rather invested it in things that were beneficial to Irish society, namely housing and other important sort of infrastructure or services that could benefit Irish society. So if the Minister is signalling over there that the government is looking positively on those sort of calls from the credit union, that's a good thing. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
Grant.
in fact, the opportunity, and just let me clarify the figures, which was to provide funding of up to €900 million for the AHBs. That has been there since 2018 or 2019. Let me just clarify that. And I believe that less than 20 million of that has been utilised by the credit union movement. So the opportunity has been there for some time and hasn't, unfortunately, been fully utilised. We would hope to see more of that being done.
Okay, well, I certainly hope it will be, and I don't know all the details as to why that hasn't been fully utilised. So that maybe is a question to put out there. But certainly the Irish League of Credit Unions were very clear in making the case a number of years ago when I was on the Finance Committee that they wanted to assist in addressing the housing crisis. The other thing I note is that if I'm correct on this bill, that one of the provisions of it is that there will be provision to sort of set maximum mortgage or interest rates in terms of loans. And that seems reasonable on the face of it, but I do wonder why we don't take similar measures when it comes to the absolute rampant profiteering of the commercial banks when it comes to interest rates at the moment, where we are charging, you know, roughly 1% more on average for interest in this country. The commercial banks, I should say, are not we, but the commercial banks are charging higher interest rates than is in the case of the rest of Europe. And we are seeing people, particularly at the moment, getting hammered with increased mortgage interest costs, very significantly exacerbating the cost of living crisis that many people are facing. And the government not doing anything really about that profiteering by the commercial banks. And certainly, you know, I mean, our view is that actually we should nationalise the banking system, that we should run the entire banking system on a not-for-profit basis, because the banks have caused the disaster that was the 2008 crash, and they have shown and continue to show in all sorts of ways that they do not have the best interests of their own customers, of society at heart, but are really interested purely in profiteering. When I say that, I'm not suggesting, however, that therefore the credit unions themselves should become an alternative banking system, because I don't think that's what they want or what their customers and members, should I say, their members want, nor do I think it would be a good thing, because they have a unique ethos which needs to be maintained. But for them to be an alternative, a good alternative to the commercial banking system, and to be supported to evolve and develop the services that they make available to their members or people who want to join the credit union movement, I think is an important thing. There are obviously some concerns that we do push them to start to become like banks, and I think it's important to sound a warning note about that is not the direction we want them to go. If the changes and you know, the legislative framework and so on, and the policy framework which we're developing around the credit unions is to enhance the services they are able to make available for communities and for their members, that's very much to the good. But what we do not want to do is jeopardise the unique ethos of the credit unions, which is a community institution, where you go looking for loans from people that you know in your community, and that you have a democratic system, if you like, governing the entire process, as opposed to what you get when you go to the banks, which is you don't have anybody to talk to increasingly these days. You'll be sent up to some credit committee somewhere who will make decisions that are not based on any relationship they have with you as a human being and an individual, and often consequently treated very, very unfairly. So what's good about the credit unions is precisely that human interaction at the grassroots level between the institution that you're going to, looking for assistance, looking for credit, and real human beings in that institution that know you and can understand your story, your particular needs. So that's all I have to say. Minister, we support the bill. I hope you will look favourably at the amendments, because the Irish League of Credit Unions have said they do believe there's amendments needed at the committee stage, and I hope you're going to look favourably at, because they're the experts in all of this, on the sort of things that they're saying, and bear in mind that we need to protect that unique ethos, that not-for-profit democratic ethos that the credit unions have, while supporting them to evolve and develop what they can offer to their members.